Is it June already? Well, it is, which means that the geek business is about to pick up. We're going to talk about that and more on today's episode of the Geek Watch Podcast.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 190 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
And you've been camping.
Yes.
So you've been off the grid for a little while.
A little bit, but I did get to see the Braxton County Monster Museum and the Bigfoot Museum in Sutton, so that was fun.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see those. I've, of course, been to the Mothman Museum multiple times, and we do the Mothman Festival every year.
Right.
I'm looking forward to that again. But yeah, things were a little bit slow, and then suddenly we hit June, and now everything's hitting all at once. There's still a strike going on, and we're not sure how long the writer strike's going to continue. Looks like they're more marching and not getting back to the table and doing any talks. But like we talked about before, perhaps when the contracts come up for the Directors Guild and for SAG-AFTRA, that might bring up some stuff.
Yep.
Hopefully, and maybe that we'll see an end to that.
Join forces and...
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, but we'll see what'll happen. Last weekend, of course, was Little Mermaid came out, and it did really well. I think about $118 million domestically. It didn't do so well overseas, which is ironic because it was overseas. But it's but it
Clever.
did really well for everyone that was upset about a mermaid of color, or even the fact that they're doing all these remakes of animated series.
Right.
Well, that's probably not going away anytime soon.
No, they announced the cast of Hercules.
Yeah?
And they got some really good players on there. Really excited about it.
Oh, yeah. Who are you most excited about?
Oh, gosh. It might be Tom Hiddleston as Hades. But we also get David Tennant as Hermes. So
Yeah.
it's not easy. But, of course, Danny DeVito coming back as Philoctetes.
Of course.
It's hard to pick a favorite. I'm highly looking forward to it.
One thing about Little Mermaid, and I talked about it a little bit, that there were people who have issues with The Little Mermaid for whatever reason, because of a lot of review bombing that was going on in Rotten Tomatoes. They had to change the way that they weighted the ratings. And
Wow.
so even though there were a lot of obviously negative reviews, they didn't get as much weight in the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Huh, okay.
And so they're now weighted grades, and that's something they've never done before. You've usually gotten a straight score, and now they're massaging a little bit.
Okay.
And I can understand why they're doing it, but at the same time, if they do it for the wrong reason and they give a movie a better rating than perhaps it deserves, obviously that's going to be a problem. I have to admit, I've been thinking a while about this idea about movie ratings, and we do it here. We talk about what we enjoy about a movie. We're not going out and saying, this movie is good, this movie's bad, you shouldn't see this movie, you should go see this movie. We just basically give our opinions of stuff that we like about it, and I think that's fine. But I'm really starting to wonder if movie ratings are all that valuable anymore. Because to be honest, if somebody in Hackensack, New Jersey doesn't like a movie and they write about it in the paper, I don't know that's going to really affect me as much. Albuquerque, New Mexico, a reviewer hated Cocaine Bear. Okay, I might even understand why they didn't like Cocaine Bear, but I enjoyed it and I was going to go see it, and they weren't going to sway me from it. So I'm wondering, honestly, if reviews really have a value anymore. Now, I do love breaking down movies and structure and looking at it from a deeper aspect. I love those type of breakdowns. I love having intellectual conversations about film as a medium and movies in particular. But at the same time, I really feel like the idea of the movie review is starting to wear thin. I think people just don't really get into reviews anymore. I don't think that they really...
No one's going to read it, and you're not going to hear thumbs up, thumbs down, and say, okay, I'm not going to go see it.
Yeah. I always thought that, honestly, a movie review is not really that valuable unless you know who the reviewer is and you have this feeling that your taste and their taste mesh, that they have a similarity, and so things that they like, you're going to like, and that makes sense to me. But this idea of a composite score and it being able to let you know whether or not you personally should go see a movie, I just don't see the value in that anymore.
Right.
And as someone who's been part of a movie review show for a while, but again, I feel like with me and Kevin, when we talk about a movie, we're talking about our feelings about it, and we do go a little bit deeper, but I don't know if it's getting to a point where we feel somebody should listen to what we say and make a decision about what movies they should go see.
Definitely.
I don't feel like that's our intention at all. With Rotten Tomatoes and the way that they've weighted the scores now, I wonder how valuable a tool that's going to be. And again, I questioned how valuable a tool it was in the past anyway, just because of the fact that there are so many reviews and this idea of a fresh meter and percentage of reviews coming from a bunch of reviewers. Some of them are being printed in a newspaper, some of them are online reviewers, And to me, doing a critique of a movie or any form of art, I feel like there is a skill set you have to develop to do that. I feel like there's certain things you have to understand about the medium before you can speak on it intelligently.
Rather than a layperson, yes.
Right. And I don't feel like a layperson doesn't have the right to talk about what they like or don't like about a movie. Certainly, I feel like everyone has the right to do that. But to grade a movie based on that stuff, that I wonder about. I do. And so I don't know if The Little Mermaid is going to kill Rotten Tomatoes, but if
it changes.
It certainly does change it. And to be honest, if it goes away, I don't know how big a loss that's going to be. People's jobs, of course, and I certainly wouldn't want anyone to lose a job, certainly. But as far as its value as a tool, I've been questioning it for a long time anyway. But since we're talking movies, we got a lot of movies to talk about this week because starting today, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And
Is it?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I had forgotten because we've been thinking
it's a
for
Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. I had forgotten all the movies that are coming out in June, and things have been a little bit slow. We've known, of course, things are down the pipe, but it seemed so far away.
Right.
Now it's like, oh, Spider-Man
Suddenly
is this weekend?
It's tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah, suddenly. So Spider-Man's playing in theaters right now, and I plan to try to catch that this weekend.
Awesome, yeah.
And also Boogeyman, the based
new
off
Stephen King one, yes.
That's this weekend as well, so I might double feature that one.
That's an interesting double feature.
Yeah. But that's not all for June. Now, we get to June 15th, which is the middle of the month, we get Flash.
Oh, wow.
And I'd forgotten about that, too. Yeah, that is this month, isn't it?
And that's going to be a telling weekend.
Yeah.
Because apparently the best comic book movie ever made with the worst actor ever.
We'll say maybe.
Not a bad actor, but the worst person.
Do it, yes.
Yeah.
And you're seeing all these articles coming out. Actress decries movie, says that this is Hollywood in a nutshell. You protect some movies and you don't protect others. It's like this is the double standard of Hollywood, which, to be fair, Hollywood doesn't have a double standard. They got one standard, and that's money.
Yeah.
And they think this movie will make money. And so if Jack the Ripper was the star of the film, especially with all the money they've got in it, and because of the fact that who knows what they're going to have later on because of the strike and everything else. If this movie is as good as everybody keeps saying that it is, then they got to air it.
And there's so many other people. There are thousands of people involved in this production, not just one person.
Right.
And one bad apple spoiling the barrel kind of thing. So many people are depending on this movie.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And again, although we may not like the actor who may be the lead, like you say, a lot of people are depending on this movie, and it does have a lot of really great stuff in it. We got a couple of weeks before this movie comes out, and then you got these articles talking about Ezra Miller, and then you got another article that says the director wants to do a sequel. They don't care about Ezra Miller's past. They're thinking that their performance was so good that they should do a sequel.
You cannot bring back Ezra.
Yes, I know we can't. John Campea, yes, I understand we cannot bring him back. I know we can't bring him back. It's not going to happen. We know it's not going to happen.
If you have a sequel, there's no problem in doing someone else. Wally West and Bart Allen, Kid Flash and Impulse. There's so many places you could go.
Right.
You can have a wonderful Flash movie.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt moving on with the story.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, From what I understand, Warner Brothers is not even thinking of recasting The Flash. This might just be it. And even though there may be some people involved that are like, oh, they did some pretty nasty things, but this is Hollywood. We'll forget about it. It's okay. If it makes money, it makes sense. And no, not really. Sometimes you have to walk away from something. But if this is going to be as good as I keep hearing it, I'm just going to have to ignore who the lead is and enjoy this movie. And
Whilst I was camping this weekend, we curled up in the camper and we watched The Shining. And watching this great movie, you know, my family not knowing the stories that I know, and talking about, oh, the little boy, how he acted. I was like, he didn't even know he was making a horror movie. And knowing that Kubrick basically tortured Shelley Duvall and, you know, how amazing her performance is. I can still enjoy this movie. I hate what she went through. It is a good movie, but we don't need to deal with that anymore.
Yeah. And
The Birds, same, you know.
The other thing, too, and you mentioned that, so you're talking about people being tormented in movies. Back in the old days, back when I was a lad, and it's way before then, because this was even before I was born. Do you know how they used to do the squibs for bullets when people were getting shot at in old movies?
No,
Bullets, they just missed. Very often. I forget what the movie was, but it was James Cagney. He's up against a wall, and these bullets are riddling off the wall. And it's like, wow, that looks real. It's because it was.
Wow.
They act nowadays where we have, and I won't go into all the nasty stuff that's going on right now.
Yeah.
We already have talked about this, and this idea of gun safety, and do we need to use real guns on a set? Is that even necessary
anymore?
Yeah, in the old days, they shot at the actors with real guns. That was a different time.
Right.
And as much as everyone was like, God, I'd love to be a Hollywood actor, I wouldn't have wanted to be one then. We're going to have a fight scene, and there's going to be a guy off camera missing you with a gun.
Shooting at you, yep.
Yeah, shooting at you, but missing.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, because it's in my contract. You're not allowed to actually shoot me. But yeah, there are a lot of stories about Hollywood and getting performances out of people in ways that were not
ethical.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. Perhaps not as ethical
or human at times.
Or kind or all that stuff. There are times in movies where it's an interesting little Easter egg, like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. When the one guy opens up the freezer and you see the girl's body and he turns around and he sees Leatherface. When he screams, he had not seen the actor in the makeup. Toby Hooper made sure he hadn't seen him. So when he turns around and sees him and that's a legit, actual reaction.
Yep.
Which makes absolute sense if you've seen that character. You're like, that's the very appropriate reaction.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, sometimes you just need to let people act. You don't have to put them through a bunch of stuff. They don't have to method act. Sometimes playing a practical joke on somebody is not the best way to get a performance. But yeah, there are so many examples of enjoying an art form but having to ignore certain things about that art form and people who are involved in it, and basically separating, as they say, separating the art from the artist. And how you do that and when it's appropriate, it's a personal call you have to make.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things are just so egregious, you just can't.
Right.
But those are the type of decisions that we all have to make. And they're not easy decisions to have to make, but sometimes you have to do it. But I think I am going to have to see this Flash movie.
Yep.
Hopefully this will be the swan song for... No, I'm not saying Ezra Miller should be canceled forever. It's not that I don't believe that they could redeem themselves in some form. And I would love to be able to see that happen. Like a real redemption, not, oh, we just forgot about it and forgave them.
That this person's gone to therapy and they've done the work and put in the...
Yeah, and they're better, and I would love to see them get better. That being said, and yes, John Campea, I'm going to say it, you can't bring back Ezra Miller. You just can't. Certainly not now. But at the end of June, and this surprised me because I knew that it was finished and it was being shown at Cannes Festival, but I didn't realize it was going to be shown this soon. I didn't know it was this month, but at the end of the month, we get Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Oh, yes. We can finally find out what the Dial of Destiny is.
Yeah, exactly. Some people are saying this is a true to form Indiana Jones film, and then there are people who are saying, oh, man, it's a safe Indiana Jones film. It doesn't break new ground. And I always like movies to try new things and be experimental. I mean, everything, everywhere, at all at once. It's one of my favorite movies of the last 5 years. No question. But I don't order pizza because I want to be surprised.
Yeah.
Because I wanted the pizza. And so to me, it's not a bad thing to say, well, this is a typical Indiana Jones movie. Well, that's what I'm going there to see. And if we get a typical Indiana Jones movie, that's what I wanted. Because very likely this is going to be the last one. And I would love to see that character get a great send-off.
Right.
Because Harrison Ford, he's getting involved in a lot of stuff. It's not like Harrison Ford's going away. He's doing great television at this point. He's getting ready to do Thunderbolt Ross. Having him as that character is going to be really interesting. Well, there's a lot more for him to do as an actor. This was one of those iconic roles that he did, and I would love to see that character get a really good send-off, and we may get that in this movie. But that's all just in this month. We got these 3 movies coming in, and
Summer.
And it's a good way to start the summer off. Now, I am going to ask you this. I am kind of putting you on the spot here.
Okay.
And I know it wasn't this last weekend, obviously. But since it's now on streaming, have you watched the new Ant-Man movie, Quantumania?
No, I didn't even know it was on streaming.
Oh, you didn't know it was
I
on
didn't
streaming?
know.
Yeah, it's been on streaming for about a month, so.
Really? No, I
And
had no idea.
I'm not going to call you a fake fan because
Okay.
you are not a fake fan. But
I'm a busy fan.
You're a busy fan for sure. But I guess this is the question is, I'm wondering how interested really are you in this movie? And this is not a fandom test. This is an honest question. How eager are you to see this movie?
I want to see it, but I can wait. It's not driving me crazy that I haven't seen it. I'm ready to see it when I get a chance. I have rehearsal tonight, and then maybe tomorrow after work I can get a chance to see it.
I am curious about this because I'm wondering, honestly, if everybody keeps talking about Marvel fatigue, and I'm wondering if it isn't starting to set in now.
It could be.
It may, like I said, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy. I enjoyed it. It did pretty well. Some of the parts are hard to watch.
Yeah.
And when it goes on streaming and you get a chance to see this, we'll definitely talk about it.
If I'm ready to cry that much.
Yeah, because it's parts of it are a lot. We've talked about that for sure. But I am starting to wonder if Marvel isn't starting to wear thin on a lot, because we've over 10 years now at this point.
Right.
It's been a long time. And so a lot of the questions are going to be, what are they going to do from this point on? Because the A-team, they're almost all gone. I think of the original Avengers, we still have the Hulk and
Hawkeye.
Yeah, Hawkeye. We still have, and Hawkeye got this pretty good TV show.
Right, yeah.
But I'm trying to think, everybody else they've retired, right?
Yeah.
They're either dead or dead,
Ed, yeah.
living on the moon.
Uh-huh.
Maybe living on the moon.
We got Thor off with his new daughter. And
Yep. And there's been a lot of talk that might have been the last Thor movie. We may not see Thor again.
Okay.
Of course, that's not something that is like big news at this point, but that's the rumor that's going on. That was going to be the sign off for Thor. And so the question is going to be, where do they go? Because looking at the news and reading a lot of articles about what's going on at Marvel, there was this idea that when they were starting out this phase, Kang wasn't going to be like the main baddie, but John Major's performance was just so spectacular.
Right.
Even in Loki, they were like, we can build the franchise off of this villain.
Yeah.
And then we all know what happened with John Majors. And so now it's like they put all their eggs in this basket, and now they might have to figure out, how do we get some of those eggs back out of the basket? And things are getting delayed all over the place because of the writer strike and everything else. A lot of things are getting shifted around. We have a few things coming up, second season of Loki and Echo, and then we get the Marvels. And I'm hearing new stuff about this. Apparently, Carol Danvers as a character is going to expand a little bit, and that interests me because as much as I enjoyed Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers as a character wasn't that deep. And maybe didn't need to be for that movie, but any main character in a movie, you want them to have some sort of depth to them, some complexity to them. And if that's what we're going to get in the Marvels, I think that's going to be a great thing, because we do need to build up some more characters, especially with Photon as a character, because that was one of the two things that really got developed out of WandaVision. And as much as I enjoyed watching Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, they really dropped the ball on the Wanda thing. like really badly. And the only other thing I think that was great that came out of WandaVision was this other character. And I just hope she's not going to get relegated to a second tier character. I'd like to see her get developed because we need to get more Avengers.
Yep.
And on the Sony side, we are going to be getting Spider-Man 4 and Zendaya's going to be back.
Yay.
Although I'm wondering how all that's going to develop. We're getting the Spider-Verse movies. It looks like we're going to be getting an animated Spider-Woman movie. They're talking about that, which I don't know if that's going to be Jessica Drew, although there's a live-action Spider-Woman that's going to be in the Madam Web movie, and it's a different type of character. It's not Jessica Drew, I don't believe. With Sony and them basically wanting to take all of Spider-Man's second-tier characters and some of the villains and turn them into anti-heroes and make movies out of them, I have to admit I'm not all that excited to see most of that. I don't know how I feel about any of it, so there's not anything right now that I'm like, oh my God, I just want to see that Kraven the Hunter movie so bad. I wasn't even that big a fan of Kraven the Hunter in the Spider-Man comics. He certainly wasn't my favorite villain, although he did have a really interesting storyline once where he buries Peter Parker alive and puts on Spider-Man's costume.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And that was a really weird story. But again, these are not characters that I necessarily want to see have their own movies. I was kind of excited for Morbius, although I didn't expect a lot, and I wasn't disappointed. And so the thing about it is I'm not ready to see Kraven the Hunter movie with that quality. It's going to have to be a really, really good story. The Madam Web movie, it's going to have a really good story, good acting, and all of that. They're going to have to win me over because right now I'm not bought into it at all. I may wind up having to watch that in streaming. I might not be that interested in seeing it in the theaters. A lot of this stuff's going to be put on hold until the writer's strike's over,
Yes.
but I don't know how much the movies have already been done. The Kraven the Hunter, the Madam Web, I don't know how far along they are, if they're going to be able to be released before the strike is over. If that's the possibility, who knows? By the time they come out, I might be so desperate to go to a theater,
Right.
I'm willing to take it,
Hey,
take a shot and do
Even
it.
a bad movie is funny.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. There have been movies that I've seen that have been so bad I just could not laugh at them.
Yeah.
We got a lot of good movies coming out this month. After that, and with everything being shifted around, there's no telling what we're going to get, but I guess we'll find out.
We shall see.
And with that said, we come to the end of episode 190. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.